Creator Kings and Queens, welcome to Business Models for Creators, the show where we explore the reality of people living the creator dream and help you turn your creator dream into reality. Today, our guest is Juliette N. She is the author of 30 books, including the Moretti Blood Brothers series, which has earned her multiple spots on the Amazon's bestsellers list. She's also the proud cat mom of a gorgeous Maine Coon kitty and a resident of Auckland, New Zealand. Let's welcome Juliette to Business Models for Creators. Woo, Juliette.
Thank you for having me. I should say aloha.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for being here. I've wanted to interview you for a long time, so I'm so glad we finally get to do this.
Me too. Can't wait to get stuck in and share what I've been doing.
Yes. All right, let's dive straight into our first segment, content sponging. As creators, we have to absorb a lot of content and just soak it up like sponges to stay inspired. And this time I only have one question for content sponging. Who has been your biggest inspiration as an author or creator, and how has that inspiration impacted your work?
Yeah, the answer to this truly is that it's kind of every indie author. So everyone that's self-publishing, because this in itself is such a new concept. And while it's been around for probably about 13, 15 years, don't quote me on the exacts there, but it is pretty new in the business world. And remember, I'm in my early 50s now. So for me, that feels like a new thing. And the fact that these people have gone out, maybe been rejected by publishers all their lives, or they're new authors just taking a bold step, or that they've been traditionally published and decided to pull their books from their publishers, which is a scary concept as well, and go out there and be an author by themselves. So all indie authors really inspire me and continue to inspire me every day. But there was one author in particular, and she probably wouldn't love to hear this, but her book is sitting underneath my monitor right now to prop it up, is Juliette N. And she is a paranormal romance author. And I write across the genre, so I don't just write paranormal, but she has a style of writing which is basically, it kind of breaks a lot of the rules and is very clearly her own voice. And when I was reading her series, I just thought, damn, she's just doing what she wants, which is very much my vibe with everything in my life. I'm super independent and all about freedom. And that kind of just, I had been drafting and writing books with all these kind of things like I have to do this and I should do this. As soon as I dropped those, everything changed for me. So J.R. Ward, absolutely, yeah. But there's some others along the way though that have independently, inspired me with the way that they write or publish or market. But particularly her with her voice, she's a big personality, so she's amazing.
Nice, awesome. All right, let's move into our next segment, A Day in the Life of a Creator, where we talk about how our creators got to where they are. And we talk about what the day-to-day is really like so you can see if it's for you. So, did you always know you wanted to be an author, or what inspired you to start writing romance novels?
Yeah, look, it's funny. When I was younger, I would say, well, not even when I was younger, I'd say, oh, yeah, I'm always going to publish a book. But it really wasn't a massive thing. It wasn't something that I dreamed about or worried about or anything. I just knew that, I was a storyteller. I always had been. English was my strongest subject at school. But I was being a marketer and I was in the corporate world. And at one stage I was working with helping animals, getting them out of cages and for the SPCA. And I was having a lot of fun in corporate. And then in 2013, I published with Random House for a book for a company with my name as the author. And I thought, okay, well, that will help me open doors. It didn't at all. But, and so it was really, I think, that moment with seeing J.R. Ward's voice, but also the time that the pandemic gave us. So there was sort of a number of things that lined up, and then a couple of little magic things where I met a whole lot of readers and created a readers group. And the journey of all that happening, really, it was just, nearly synchronistic and serendipitous and all those fancy words. So it really opened up the doors. And I feel like it was a little bit fated because not only was the time and all those things lining up, but there was the background of my 30-something years as a marketer and a businesswoman that, gave me all the skills necessary to not just write books, but also sell them, because that is half the job, 100%.
Yeah, and so it's not like you hated your job and you were looking for an escape. You were doing it like okay in your job, enjoying it well enough, and you just kind of flowed onto this path of being an author. Is that what it was like?
Well, I had a very successful career and worked for some of the biggest brands in the world, and many of your listeners would know them. But I had got to the point of intolerance with corporate. So when I realized, and this took a while, when I realized that my publishing and writing of my books was actually making me some pretty serious money, I thought, gosh, then the next dream jumped in. It was like, oh, well, maybe I can leave corporate. And as soon as I decide something, I'm super impatient. So I got really, impatient and was like, let's do this. And I mean, it really did happen very quickly for me because, compared to some authors. So I was very, very lucky, but I was very determined. And when you hear about the amount of work that I do and how quickly I publish, you'll understand how hard I worked to make that happen. So it wasn't a gift and handed to me on a silver platter in any way or form. And Jasmine, you know that.
Yeah. I definitely been following your journey for a long time because we met in a copywriters group when you were in corporate, and then I watched you progress from there to where you are now. So let's talk about the day to day to see what it's really like, because on social media we just see the end result, but we don't know like how the sausage is made. So like, what time do you wake up? Do you have a morning routine?
Yeah.
Like, how's that go?
Yeah. Look, it kind of changes every day to day. And I think the biggest thing for me and for your authors listening that aren't full-time yet, I thought, well, I can't wait to be full-time. I was so tired working corporate, was working part-time. And I thought I'm going to have all this free time to be doing all the things when I went full-time. And honestly, I don't know, time got sucked out of it. Time continuum thing or something. It did not happen. But then I also sped up my releasing as well, so that so really I predominantly write at night, and I'm trying to change my schedule at the moment, because the first thing that happened was because I'm not married and I don't have children, I had no structure to my life. It's amazing how corporate or a job actually forms your life. I mean, obviously we have to go to bed, to wake up, to go to our job and come home and have dinner. When you don't have anything like that, you can do what you want when you want, which for a freedom-loving woman like me was fantastic. But I kind of was like, especially with America being my biggest audience and me being in New Zealand, I was staying awake till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning writing and talking to people because you guys are awake then. And then I would wake up, and it really threw my body clock quite a lot. It was fine in regards to writing, but my health started being impacted a little bit. So what I try to do now, because I do write, I can't write in the morning. I mean, I can if I have to, but it doesn't appeal to me. So I like to kind of go slower in the mornings. So I normally get up and go for a walk, as I love the beach. I'm in Hawaii a lot. So I go to the beach and go for a walk, and I might do some meditations, and I'll have my breakfast. I sort of take things slowly, do some chores. I might shoot to the shop. But then I get home and I try to start around about 11 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 12, and sometimes even 1 o'clock if it's a lighter day. But then I'm straight into the business. So I try to do my Zooms if there's any audios or podcasts at around 11 o'clock, because that matches quite well with like the United States. It's about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon the day before. And, but then, 11 o'clock. So then I split what I do into business and then the writing. So it's very much doing the business stuff, replying to messages, talking to my team, because I have a team of people that work in my business. So it might be my editors or cover designers, my PA, my graphic designers, and then the publishing stuff, because I put that into the business stuff. So I might be doing any number of 5 million tasks in regards to looking at my sales or publishing or unpublishing or updating back matter, which is the space in the back of your book where you're getting people to buy the next book. or just talking to your readers. And then anywhere between sometimes 3, but generally more like 5 o'clock, I'll start writing.
Oh, wow.
And it's just when it gets a little tricky because it's like, I literally don't really stop. So I have been trying to stop and get myself to stop and then make dinner and sit down for a little bit and then get writing again. So it's pretty intense. So when you're talking, and we haven't quite got to the rapid release and how quickly I do it yet, but when you're doing that, your whole life is fine tuned. So while it sounded all organic in the morning and like I can go and do what I want and I've got the freedom of being self-employed, there is only a few hours to do that. And then the rest of it, every hour is really accounted for because there is a lot of tasks in managing and promoting, 30, I think it's 32 books now. I'm writing my 32nd one right now. So it's a massive beast. And then when you've got people to manage as well, you have to keep them moving and so on. So it's highly fine-tuned. Now, I just want to preface this with, this is not normal. Most people don't publish as quickly as I do. And therefore, the things that I'm doing don't have to happen as quickly as what they do in my business. So,
yeah, well, let me ask you this, and this is something I was always genuinely curious about. Do you think you would have found the success you found if you were not a rapid release publisher? So for those who don't know, rapid release means publishing about a book a month, which is intense.
Well, for me it does, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I've seen around too, because actually back when I was in the self-publishing space, what I heard is you have to publish a book a month or else readers will forget about you. So I'm curious, do you think you have to produce a book a month or not necessarily?
I mean, you don't have to do anything. I mean, I have, I think, for a starting point, you've got to treat, if you want to make money from being an author, you've got to treat it as a business. You need to have a business strategy. And then from that, you need a marketing strategy. And out of that, you need an advertising plan. So one of your strategies might be that you want to release monthly because you've got a target. Like I have some big personal goals, which is my reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Obviously, with every release you make, every release you do, you are making money from that. You're building up what you call your backlist, which is all all your books, and then there's more books that are selling in the background in your sales funnel. So the answer is kind of yes and no. I wouldn't be earning the amount of money that I am now if I had 10 books as opposed to 30 books. But do you have to do that? No, because some people will publish one book and it will go viral or whatever, and they will be making more money than I am. So any time, and I swear I preach this as widely as I can, anytime you hear must do or you have to, just completely delete that because there's always someone or something that can prove those things wrong. So just go on your own journey. And that was one of the things. I was quite alone in my journey to start with. I didn't know any other authors or anything. And actually that was the greatest blessing because, and also with my 30-something years marketing and business background, a lot of things that people said to me, you have to do this. I'd go, what? No, you don't. I'm not doing that. And I didn't, and I still don't for some of these rules. So no. So yes, I'm making money because that amount of money but that's based on in my business. So the way I've done things, but Mary Jo over here might be doing something different, and she's got 7 books and earning 7 times as much as me. So it's like any small business. There's no rock solid rules and around that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I'm glad you said you warned against following the must do's and the have to do's because there's a lot of preaching in the self-publishing space. You must do this, you have to do that. So I'm glad you provided an alternative.
Yeah, totally. Do it your way. And if it's not working, then you go looking for some answers because that's the thing with me. I might be kind of ignorantly or arrogantly refusing to be following rules, but I'm equally as open and going, okay, well, that didn't work, so let me pivot real quick. And you have to do everything real quick in my business and some others that work, that publish rapidly as well. But being open, okay, well, that didn't work. So and how that happens for me is I have very little ego around things. So I'm happy to go, oh, shit, well, that was wrong. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, oh, well, I was wrong about that. And I have no qualms whatsoever on being wrong. So I might go, well, that rule actually does apply for me, but it doesn't mean that it applies to everyone. So I don't want to go in there and go, well, actually, I agree. You have to do that. It's like, okay, in my business, it actually is better to do it that way. So it's just changing that, the could instead of the should type thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'm curious about the day to day. What percentage, or week to week rather, what percentage of your time is spent writing versus what percentage of your time is spent marketing?
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that. I write every single day, just about. There will be days, very few days in a month that I don't, because I write my story and then I go straight into revisions. And then once my revisions are done, I do a self edit and then it goes off to the editors. So so it's very quick. And so unless I absolutely need to have a day off because I'm literally dying.
Mhm.
A migraine or you get sick, whatever, or life intrudes. Like I recently had to do my taxes, which was, so I had days where I was like, my brain was just frying. So, but I account for having a few days, but I do have times where I'm like, you can't not write today. You actually are really close to your deadline and you had that day and that day off. So it's really every day. But also my vampire books are longer word count than my contemporary, like my Mafia and my Billionaire books. So those are a little bit shorter. That gives me a kind of a day or so more that I have up my sleeve to have some time off. But generally, with that happens, there's always a huge task to do in the business. So I'll go, well, I'll have that time off and then I'll do this instead. So there's a little, yeah, it's not a strategy that's going to be sustainable for long term.
Yeah, yeah, you've been going for a while now. About how many hours a day do you write and about how many words a day do you produce, if you know?
Yeah, that I do. What I do now, which I've never shared before, is that I keep a track inside every book when I'm writing. So I write the word count when I start the book because there's all the back matter, and then every day I track how many I've written and then where I'm up to, and it keeps me accountable because otherwise you what it's taught me is how quickly I write, and
Mhm.
it gives me because a lot of authors say those edit deadlines freak me out, and it's too much pressure. I know how much I can write now. And so I know I don't panic as much as I used to in the beginning. So I write somewhere between 3 and about 10,000 words a day. I aim for 3 to 5. If I do that, then I get a nice consistent flow, but it is writing every day. So if I have a few days off and I get behind, then I'll wake up and I'll be like, right, you've got to crack out 8,000 words today to make sure you stay on track. If I get off track, which I have a couple of times, that starts putting the pressure on me and I start thinking, holy smokes, I'm going to get, I've never missed an edit deadline in 31 books, but, yeah, yeah. So it's fine. It works for me. It motivates me actually.
Yeah, and about how many hours does it take you to hit the 3,000? Let's say 5,000. Let's say you write 5,000 words in a day. How many hours does that take?
That I can't answer. And the reason for that is because if it's at the beginning of the book, it will either go really fast because it's a story that's pouring out of me, or it might
Mhm.
be my vampires, for example. I'm up to book 12. I've just written book 12. And so sometimes there's a overarching storyline that's been going through the 12 books. So sometimes it can be slow because of certain reasons. So there's really not and in the middle, every author knows this, the middle of the book is really slow.
Yeah.
At the end, you speed up, like really. So, I mean, yeah, I could write 3,000 words very easily in sort of 2.5 hours if it was just flowing normally, just to give a bit of a guide. But honestly, you write, I don't worry about that. And I don't think
Yeah.
other authors should. You write as well as you write. For me, I talked to an author the other day who's also an editor, and she really prided herself on being this, great editor, and she writes really clean. But the story was really suffering because of that. So I think, for me, this is just I figured out how I write and how I like to publish and how I wanted my business to the speed in which I wanted it to work, I didn't go in there and go, I want to write, this many books, I'm going to do it real fast. This is just who I am. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a teacher. I'm really impatient. So I don't want to spend 6 months or 12 months writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, so if rapid release is something you're considering, but your story is being impacted and the quality of it and the juiciness of it because you're trying to do 3,000 words in 3 hours, then don't do that. And if it started to impact me, I wouldn't do it either, because the story is the most important thing, right? If the story is terrible, you can have the best marketing and the best, whatever, it's a huge audience, but your business will be impacted if the story is terrible at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you were saying like it's just who you are and you write fast, and you mentioned some experiences of stories pouring out of you. So I'm curious, what is your secret for that experience of a story poured out of you, staying inspired? You have so many characters, so many stories, you have multiple series. How do you come up with all those ideas and not let them dry up?
Yeah, the opposite is happening, honestly. I literally had a weird conversation with a friend the other day and said, I don't think I've got enough life left to write all these books. And I don't do regrets very much, but I was like, man, I wish I'd started publishing 20 years ago. And she's like, that self-publishing didn't exist then, right? I don't really know the answer to that. And I certainly don't think it's anything that you can teach somebody. You either have it or you don't. And that's not a judgment, but I just literally, I feel like that about myself. I don't know where they come from. The characters come to me when I'm walking on the beach or in my sleep or wherever, or just the other thing here, you can kind of, well, I'll ask questions like, with the ideas, if I'm sort of in a story, because I plot, but I also pantster. So pantster is where you just literally start writing and the story just comes out of you. So I do a mix of both. And I just, if I'm sort of at a point where I'm like, where am I going to take this? It's like, this is a tool I use in my life. You ask questions. What am I going to do here? What would be what could possibly happen here? Questions promote curiosity and allow creative thought the space, as opposed to jumping to conclusions which are solid and have no opening or space to them. Just you go, I wonder what's possible here. I wonder what we could do here. I wonder what is another bunch of characters, or whatever the questions may be, as opposed to, well, bugger that, I'm sort of stuck now. That's like, okay, the end. That's it. There's no openness or creative flow there with those sort of things. So, but I'll be honest, there are very few times that happens. It's really, and I think it's trusting yourself as well. Like, I think I'm very spiritual. So I think, Jasmine, you kind of know this about me. For 20, 30 years, I've been a spiritual person. And so I trust my creativity. I trust myself as a creative person. I've been doing it as a marketer, creating campaigns and products and stuff for a long time. So my creative muscles are very, maybe mature is the right word, or in full use. And so I just trust myself as I'm going. And then, like, readers give you tons of feedback. So talking, I think some people think she wastes a lot of time talking to her readers and hanging out in her readers group, but they are a constant source of motivation, inspiration, ideas, and they love doing that. So they keep me, fired up and excited about previous books and new books, and I get excited about that. So for me, it's about having fun. Don't overthink it. Just give yourself freedom. And I think that was the thing. I had a real process to where I got to becoming a full-time author. In the beginning, there was no financial pressure on me, and I didn't even know that I could become a full-time author and have it pay for my groceries, let alone, everything else. So the first time I bought a cup of coffee with my book money, it was a huge moment. And now it pays for everything. So, it's so there wasn't that pressure there. It was just really just playing and having fun, which when I catch myself now getting stressed about things, I go, just play and have fun. This is the whole purpose of this.
Yeah, I like that attitude because, like, I don't know what I did to my algorithm. I mean, I'm sure I'll take responsibility, but on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, I get these ads about like all these biz apps, make money. And so a lot of people frame being an author or getting into self publishing is to make money, make passive money. But I like your attitude and how you started. Your origin story is just playing and having fun and letting the inspiration come through you. I don't think there's enough messaging about that out there. The emphasis is on the money. If you have a day job when you get started as an author, there's not as much financial pressure, so you can just play, and that may be better for creativity in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I think, but again, being a single person, I had to be very sensible about when I made the leap into full-time author. So I do see people saying like, I'm going to take a year and I've decided this, I've that. Like for me, I didn't wing it. I very much knew my numbers, and I was actually earning 5 figures a month before I left, US
Oh,
dollars,
wow.
by the way, anything I speak about today, because I know people sometimes wonder if it's New Zealand. So I just talk in US dollars for everything. So I'd already earned a couple of 5 figure months before I left, just in my business. So I knew my numbers, and I'd had about 2.5 years sales data, which was steadily growing as per my strategy. So I wasn't winging it. I was pretty confident. Of course, there was fear. There was a huge amount of fear after 30 something years as an employee. But I would say that puts pressure on the business unless you're a person who is comfortable doing that. Even conversations about the pressure on your relationships and the money conversations, those sort of things are going to interfere in your creativity. I mean, by all means, people are far more, risque than me, I would say, with these things, but it is a business and you are being a creative product creator. So you have to take those two things into account. And I didn't want to just jump too early, even though a lot of people were saying, you'll be fine. You're doing all the things. I did probably leave it too late because some of the jobs the job that I was doing at the time, it was tricky because I was kind of like, during those corporate meetings where everyone's yawning quietly behind their hands, and I was like, oh, I'm a best-selling author earning a whole lot of money. Let me out of here.
Yeah. And I'm really glad though to see, because like for some people, after it becomes their full-time thing, the creativity could go away, but yours just had just grown and grown. So I love that you've managed to stay inspired.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people say, oh, well, creativity gets impacted when you're a rapid release author. Did it? Did yours? Because mine haven't. So again, it's that, just don't listen to these comments, because there's a lot of green envy and stuff in the author world and in the world in general. So just be careful the comments that you take on board, because if anything, like now I'm like, holy smokes, I'm looking at my board behind the screen here with all the books I've got. Literally every month next year has got a book release in it, and a couple of new series being launched, and I've got about 4 stories that I've mapped out in my head that I haven't even put into my business flow, because I can't think beyond a year. Like, it's just too much for me, because that's like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 stories. That's, of sort of 60, 70, 80,000 words. It's a lot of
Yeah.
stories to be holding in your head. So I just put them into files and just go, okay, well, there's something. And the loudest ones, well, I can't. Everything is locked in. I have pre-orders locked in that are selling at the moment, right through until July, soon to be August next year. So
Wow. Yeah. And like another interesting thing you mentioned is that some of it you didn't control. Like sometimes the stories just come to you and you couldn't summon them or drum them up. They just came.
yeah, my first book, because I was writing archangels. I have archangels as well. In the beginning, which I did end up publishing, but my first vampire character, Braden Moretti, he came to me one day on the beach and just would not shut up. And thank God, he didn't, because he literally made my career, that vampire. And so his story, and he's now I'm publishing in December the 12th book in that series. And yeah, so, but yeah, some characters are louder than others, and but it's a lot of fun, and I get so immersed in the book that I'm writing that's the most exciting thing for me at the time. But Braden Moretti, and I've coincidentally got this book here. This is my Billionaire series. This is Daniel DeFord, and it's actually a story about a Kiwi author who goes to Hawaii, which is, yes, that's something I do, but it is not a story about me, and meets this arrogant CEO. So there's a billionaire romance, and that's very typical, the arrogant, wealthy man, and so he did the same thing. And of course, I was a paranormal romance author, and I kind of mentioned to some friends that I was going to write this billionaire, and they're like, "But that's not what you do." And that whole stay in your lane. And I was like, I don't care, because again, I was still working in corporate. I want to write a story, and I knew there was 3 books. Well, now I've just published the 7th, and I'm going to start writing next week the 8th book in that series. So I do write quite long.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like you mentioned Brayden was really loud, but in general, do your characters interrupt you and you can hear them loud and clear? Or do you carve out time like, okay, I need to carve out time for creative inspiration so I can hear what's coming? Like, is it like an intentional channeling process, or does it just come to you? Like you're on the beach, it comes to you, or do you clear out space for your creative download?
Oh yeah, that's what you say. Oh yeah, no, they do just show up. But I can do the intentional channeling stuff as well. So I it's when I sit down, I go, right, boys, let's go, and and kind of let them come out. But I do let them have free space of my brain, because it's in those moments when you're not really forcing it or paying attention that cool little things can come up. Yeah, so again, yeah, I do give them permission. But there's times, like obviously right now, I'm like, okay, shut up. But it's not that obvious. It's not like, okay, I'm having this conversation like a crazy person with my characters, although sometimes absolutely. You just go, okay, it's like you kind of have this agreement, like, okay, guys, stop. This is what I'm in business mode. Even during the day when I'm doing business stuff, I'm not thinking creatively at all. Not at all. Not in that sense. But yes, when I'm doing my cover design stuff, but I'm not letting the characters, I'm just not letting them through. And again, in the morning, it's more organic, and I might be hearing things and at the beach and stuff, but I'm kind of also in doing my chores and my vacuuming or whatever it might be, or I've got to go down and do the groceries. So it's kind of very practical stuff. And and I am a very practical person. So when I'm in that mode, generally, but driving is an interesting one, because, your mind just sort of goes into automatic pilot. And so there I can actually get some quite interesting downloads, which is of course frustrating because you're driving. You can't exactly write things down. And I don't write. I know some authors get a napkin and they write half a book on a napkin. Like, no, I have to be in front of my typewriter. So yeah.
Yeah. So what is there a place you get your best downloads? I'm assuming if I had to guess for you, it would be the beach, but I could be wrong. But where do you get your most downloads and your best downloads?
Yeah, there's not one particular place. In fact, sometimes at the beach now, I've ended up doing phone calls. So I need to stop doing that because I'm not actually relaxing enough. No, there's no particular place. It's really just when and because everything's happening so quickly now, it's all over the show. Really.
Nice. All right, let's move into our next segment, marketing and monetization methods, where we talk about how to make money as a creator. So, as an author, how do you make money? What are your all your different income streams?
So I'm what we call a wide author, which means that I sell my books through all the platforms. So Amazon, Apple, Kobo, Google Play, Barnes and Nobles. Just trying to remember them all. And then
do you have any audiobooks?
I do have I have audio on Google. But I don't do translations and any of that stuff yet. I'm really building up my backlist and creating lots of books. So what that also means is that I'm not exclusive on the Kindle platform. So I'm not a KU author, but my books are in the subscription in Kobo Plus. So readers can buy that subscription instead of the Amazon one, and then read in that subscription model there. And then there's a whole lot of little places like, the libraries and Smashwords. And actually, I don't know if Smashwords is little, but a whole handful of others that are distributed and sold through a platform called Draft to Digital. So if you're a budding author or, new to the author world, check out Draft to Digital, and it actually publishes your books on whichever platform you choose through there, which is, really easy and so on.
So I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, my books are also on the Radish app, but that's not something that's a massive marketing point for me. It's just additional income.
Yeah, I'm curious what drove you to go. Why? Because I know romance readers are like really voracious. They read a lot. So Kindle Unlimited is good for them. They sign up for Kindle Unlimited. But to be in Kindle Unlimited and get paid per page, you have to be exclusive to Kindle. But if you're Y, you don't get Kindle Unlimited. So I'm curious, what was your decision process in going Y?
Yeah, romance readers are very, very voracious, and they're voracious no matter where you sell. And for me, I didn't want to be. So I remember I got this business background, and so my commercial mind went, I don't want to have one customer because Amazon is my customer, and I want to be risk averse, and I want to sell my books everywhere, because if something happens to Amazon for whatever reason, or their payment doesn't come through, then that's my income, and I'm reliant on one customer. So if I was selling soap or paintbrushes, I wouldn't just sell to one chain store. I might have, and this is a kind of and don't quote me on these numbers, but generally when I did business mentoring for about 10 years with small and medium-sized businesses here in New Zealand. And one of the things we say to business owners is make sure that you have, maybe your biggest client is about 50 or maybe 60% of your business, but you need a whole truckload, like 20 or 10 other customers, so that you don't rely. If that customer decides to get rid of you and get another soap or paintbrush product in, that's not your business dead. So, I do that the same. I have like 3 or 4 editors. I have multiple cover designers. So very risk adverse thinking. So something or someone falls over, and I did have that with COVID when my editors got COVID, and I had other people I could call on, but otherwise rapid releasing, there is no buffer. I have to get that book edited and out the door. So I didn't want to be exclusive with Amazon, because I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket. And I want all readers around the world, no matter what platform they buy on, to be able to access my books. And they can. And they can read through subscription on Kobo Plus, which is actually cheaper than Amazon KU.
Nice. Very good decision making, because there's like almost like a war between Y and exclusive, but we already covered this. When you hear you must be exclusive, or like whatever, ignore it. You have to figure out what's good for your business, but your reasoning made a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and it's a completely different marketing strategy to sell books in a wide market than if you are KU. And so for authors that have just been in KU all their career, it is a highly contentious subject, but they would need different marketing and advertising skills and knowledge to be successful in a wide market. And I say that as a marketer and not as an author.
Yeah. And so about the business, and I'm not sure how specifically you can answer this, but about how much does it cost to run an author business, or how much does it cost to produce and promote a book, if you have any ballpark figures? Because for every business, there are expenses.
Yeah, no, that is nearly impossible to answer, because it's literally, it's so individual, depending on how many books you have, how many books you're advertising, and so on and so forth. If you're doing Facebook ads, you are spending a shit ton of money. At this point, I do not do Facebook ads, so I do advertising in the reader newsletters, and I very, very, very fortunate. I get book bubs just about every month. And, they're the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
You'll know that. But look, I know we talked about, what is the cost of making a book? And so again, it's a little bit like how long is a piece of string? So you've written your book, you've done your own self edits on it, and then you need to give it to an editor. And that can cost anywhere from, and by the way, I never advise you to publish a book without getting it edited by somebody else, and not your mum and not your sister and not your best friend's brother's cousin who is also an editor or good at English in school. You need a professional editor, because when you start getting those reviews that are like, really hard, you'll wish you'd spent the money. If you don't have the money, you save up, because your first book is important. So you go to the editor, and that can cost anywhere between $500 to $3,000. You don't have to spend $3,000, and I do not. You need a cover. Again, don't do it yourself unless you are a designer. Don't get your brothers, mothers, cousins, uncles, whatever, to create your covers, because if you don't like them, and they do, you want to be able to have a business conversation with your people that are working in your business. And if you want to get a new designer or whatever, so you just keep it to business people, and you're not stuck and feeling pressured to agree, because your book covers are so important. The book cover, the blurb, which is, your book description, and the book itself are 3 equal parts important. So your editor, $500 to say $3,000. You don't want to spend that upwards end. Your covers, again, they can be anywhere from $150 to, $1,000 and more. So there's a wide range of, a designer may use stock photo, or you may get a photographer and a model to be on your cover. I have not done those things. I don't think they're necessary. I don't know that they sell books more. I'm not seeing proof. But again, there's so many variables that those authors that can afford that, again, did they start 10 years ago, and have they got a massive audience and they're selling 300 times more books than I am? And so is it the cover, or is it just, a number of other factors in it? But at this book, a 30th, 32nd, I've got probably about 40 book covers now, but the stock photography and a really great designer works for me. So I think if you budgeted somewhere around, and again, we're always talking US dollars here, let's just say you're averaging, say, $350 or $400, $500 for a book cover, you're probably looking at $1,500 without counting for your time and money, if you put a dollar value for your own hourly rate, but you're probably looking at about $1,500, about, very generalized, to produce a book. Then you want to publish it, which doesn't cost anything apart from, there's no cost involved with that.
And then marketing.
Then you've got to market it. Now that is then up to whatever your marketing plan is, which I won't talk about today, but like I've shared, I do paid advertising in places like Free Booksy and BookBub and so on. And then there's a whole sales funnel and a whole advertising and marketing plan around that. They don't do click ads like Amazon ads or Facebook ads. That's when you are eating into a massive amount of your profit. So that's the reason I don't do it. I want all the money.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Facebook ads can get like insanely expensive. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a marketer, I was taught when I was a baby marketer, and right up until before I left, we would, on average, corporate businesses spend about 15% of their income on marketing, and some companies do a little bit more than that. But what I'm seeing was Facebook ad strategies is that it can be around the 50% of income. And to me, I just go, hell no, I'm not getting out of bed and spending half my money on Facebook ads. But equally, I may in the near future add Facebook ads to my strategy. But I have no desire to give away 50%. That means if you're earning 100,000 a year, you're only profiting 50, but then you've got business running costs and staff and all the rest of it out of it. And I just go, no, that's not a business model that I want. So that's my personal choice. So But equally, I'm also pretty shit at doing Facebook ads. I do what I know, and that's what I started with. That's
Yeah.
my strong opinion on that. And I know many people will disagree. If you are a talented and skilled advertiser and click ads, then that will be how you sell your books, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for me, I don't want to give away that money at the moment. I don't need to, and three, I'm crap at it, so I would be throwing money against the wall. So it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, so most of your marketing are like the list, like BookBug, Free Booksy, your own Facebook group, which you've built fans, and your own email list. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a whole sales funnel, so it is. There's a lot more to it, but that's generally, the tactics that I'm using.
Yeah. Okay, so on another subject, in your opinion, what are the pros and cons of indie publishing versus traditional publishing?
I mean, it's pretty hard to get a traditional publishing contract, to be honest. So for me, literally days and weeks, just weeks, like I'm talking 2 weeks before I even really understood that self-publishing existed and how it worked, I lodged my book with there's a system that you put your book in and you go looking for an agent. And I got about 3 rejections. And again, this comes down to the impatient stuff. I coincidentally met this author, started talking to her on a Zoom, and she told me how the whole system worked. And for me, I just went, light bulb moment. Why on earth would I publish with a traditional publisher? Because as somebody with my background in, creating adverts and being a marketer and a businesswoman, I just went, oh, I can do it all myself. And then I don't have to even have a conversation with publishers about the content in the book, what the cover looks like. Because I knew really strongly what I wanted my books to look like. I knew how to research the market. I knew how to study and look at trends and all of those things. So I was like, oh, well, I don't need them. I'll go and do it. And I get to keep all my royalties rather than pull out to the publishers, right? This might sound a little harsh, but I'm wondering, are they really the best at what they do? Or are independent authors the best at what they do? Because we are taking over the world. And so, there are a lot of authors out there that are earning 6, 7, 8-figure incomes in this business because of what we know, because of how we're doing things, and because we get to keep all the royalties. And here's the thing, if you get published with a traditional publisher, you still have to go out there and market your books.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to. I'm sure it's part of the contract. You don't have to, but you need to. You need to brand yourself. You need to market your books. So you're losing royalties. And it sounds great. Like, yes, okay, I was published with Random House and that sounds great on my resume, but has it really added any value? No one buys my books because of the fact I published with Random House. They buy the books because the cover's great, the blurb was enticing, and they keep buying them because they loved the story and they want the next one. And they might follow me on social media. And if you follow my Instagram channel, then there's a couple of hot, sexy photos on there every week that you might, if you're a lady, you might be quite keen to keep following me. But it's fun and the energy of it all. So I look again, I call myself constantly on those ego things. Like, is it really matter? Like, no. The only downside I think that I'm hitting right now is print books. Getting print books, obviously, if you wanted your books in Barnes and Nobles, for example, all around America, really that happens through traditional publishing. So there are ways that you can get into individual stores and so on. But for someone like me that's in New Zealand, that's a very costly thing. I'd have to get my books sent over here, then ship them over there, plead, and probably they'd say no. It'll be a very slow, monotonous, probably ineffective strategy and use of my time. I could have written 3 books by the time I've hit my head against that brick wall. So,
yeah, and I guess you don't need to be in stores because most people are buying online now anyway.
I mean, there is that. So young new readers are actually buying a lot of print books. TikTok is a huge driver of print books, but also, I mean, it's like I say, I'm currently earning multi 6 figures as an author right now, and with not selling a ton of print books. So I always, when again, I try not to think in restrictive sort of thought patterns. It's like there's 8 billion people on the planet. 8 billion people. If I just got 0.1% of those people buying ebooks from me, I will never starve again.
Yeah.
It's a ton of money. So yes, would I like to have my books, in Barnes and Nobles and other bookstores around the world? Yes, absolutely. I was fortunate that I got to experience that with the Random House in New Zealand. Every bookstore, they had them right in the front of the stores. I had that moment in my career, and it was pretty cool. But it's so I never say never. I would love that, and so I think that may be potentially where you'd need. And I don't know enough about this, to be honest, but I think that's where having a traditional publisher or something like that can actually benefit. But for me, getting starting off and getting to where I've got now was definitely all about doing it myself and learning. Like I created a cover recently for me, and I wish I could show you, but it's winging its way to New Zealand because it launched last week. My Christmas book, in the Billionaire series, I created, they're all men, and the Christmas book is actually the sister. So they called it the Fourth Dynasty. And I was like, oh, great, I finally get to put a woman on the cover. So we created this amazing, gorgeous, she had beautiful red lips with this dark woman, so she's so sexy. And I looked at it and went, shared it with an author friend, and she went, it's not a guy, it won't sell as well. Now, it would have still sold, but it wouldn't have sold as well because it was a girl. So there's all of these things that you go, so constantly learning and going, all right, well, that was a bad move. So pivot, create, back to the cover designer, put a guy on it, damn it.
Nice. Well, let's move into our final segment, going deeper, where we get to know our creators on a more human level and learn more from them. So, what has been your biggest mistake as an author, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think going back to what we just said, what we were just talking about, I don't think there's been any big mistake, to be honest. And I'm quite a harsh critic on myself. I think, what I said before, I probably should have left corporate a couple of months before I did. But equally, that could have been the wrong thing to do, because I could have got a little scared because I hadn't seen, the big numbers. And because my growth trajectory is literally like this. It's, it's being rapid and fast. The cover thing like that. But again, I've been really lucky. I have some great author friends who, bounce ideas off and stuff like that. So I don't think there's been any massive big mistake, which might, if we were in a job interview, you'd probably be going, she's not very self-aware. But I truly don't think there has been anything massive, because every day I don't just throw a book in there and walk away or go, well, they're all published, and so we'll leave those. I'm constantly looking at my sales numbers, looking at the performance of the books, using data and my instinct to feel how the business is going every day. So I'm constantly changing things. I don't as things sort of dip down, I don't just go, oh gosh, this isn't good, and go to the beach. I literally start tweaking things. So it's a constant, ever evolving, ever moving, ever changing business. And I think it's very uncomfortable, to be honest, if you're somebody that likes certainty. Recently, Amazon changed the categories, which was exciting. We were all like, oh God, there's some real categories in here that we can, things like literally billionaire, because there is billionaire categories, but no one couldn't click it and choose it. You just, won the lottery and got your book put in there. But as soon as we changed the categories, that impacted our sales. And the algorithm in Amazon is probably one of the greatest secrets on earth. It's it's just crazy. So that has impacted most of us, I would say, if everyone was being honest. And so that's uncomfortable, because you kind of go, well, this is interesting. Sales have, dipped, and then, you do a launch and then it kind of helps that series, or it doesn't, those things are not guaranteed. So I don't want to be going and throwing out things and then that become that's, a law. It's definitely not. So you have to get used to being uncomfortable. Now, here's the other thing, going back to being exclusive with Amazon, that knowing that was happening, it doesn't matter, because for me, I've got these other channels that are performing really, really well.
Yeah.
So when something goes wonky in one of them, you don't like freak out that it's all your income. You're like, okay, well, Google Play is a massive channel for me. And so that's a really steady, solid channel. And so I know that unless something, which could always happens, it's pretty solid. Yeah. So I don't think there's been any major.
Yeah, and I would say obviously not, because you're doing really well, so things must have gone well. So that brings me to, what was your biggest win as an author, and how did you make it happen?
Look, becoming a bestseller author, it happened just before I left corporate. I didn't expect it to happen. And look, I didn't do a thing. It was all of the things that I was doing that made it happen. And it happened during a BookBub, because BookBub reaches really enormous audiences. And it actually happened on my box set, but when it happened on this book got like 50,000 downloads in like 2 or 3 days. Actually, I think it was literally, I think it was I think it might have been the first day. It was absolutely enormous. And it was I think my fourth BookBub. I knew what numbers to expect, but that was massive. And so, yeah, it wasn't, and you can't just go and get a BookBub. You have to do the things to get a BookBub, if that makes sense. So your book cover has to be great. All the components of the covers, the blurb, the story, because they read the book. I had books in the series that they were selling through to. So the business, your branding, your reviews, they're looking for a number of things. So I didn't do one thing. I didn't do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things. This is a year and a half, 2.5 years. A year and a half into my career with, I think maybe 12 books or something like that. And in my business, maybe 15 books. I'm not sure. All of those things that I had done, every single step that I had taken to that point, is what created that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shared that, because in copy, there's this copy formula that says one weird trick, that one thing you're missing. And so people, when they're selling courses or solutions, they just try to sell you that one magic button. But I like that you said your success was like a combination of a bunch of efforts and strategies together over the course of time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if you sold standalone books, because let's say you were a nonfiction writer or something like that, it might be slightly different. But with romance, it is a whole funnel. All the books interlink and sell each other. So it's all of the components have to work, because that 50,000 downloads could have done nothing. It was a free book. And yeah, the one before it, which was the Bestselling, which was a paid book, was, great as well. But the 50,000 free ended up making me an enormous amount of money, because of the things that in the funnel that was set up to work and sell the other books and cross over into other series. And I've continued to capitalize on that. So I wish it was one thing, because then I could get more.
Yeah.
Go to the beach more.
Yeah. Just a few more questions for you. This is a question I've been wanting to ask you the most. This is a question I should build it up so much, because the audience is going to be like, but okay, you're going to know what I'm saying, but I have to explain for those who don't know. There is a technique called writing to market. And what writing to market means is you research what the audience wants, you follow the trends, you write your book to serve the market. Then there's writing the book you want to read, meaning whatever your dream is, your taste is, whatever you want to read, you write it. So I'm curious, what do you do? Do you write to market, write to feed the market, or write the book you want to read?
It's both. And I'm lucky because of that. Being a commercial person, I was never going to write a story about a banana falling in love with a packet of peas, but, and like, we laugh, but oh my God, people write the craziest, and good for them. If that gets their creative juices flowing and that's exciting to write that book, good for them. But I do write to market, because those are the books that I read. I love, my mafia. This series. Holy smokes, I was excited. I started reading Mafia and I was like, oh, I want to write that. Mafia is the hottest thing right now. Holy smokes. This series, 3 books, is outselling absolutely everything. It's just on fire right now. And that is to market because it's the hottest thing out there, but it was what I wanted to write. I have some books that I didn't love writing as much, but so you have to decide. There are people that write books, they just want to write books in hope to make a bit of money, but they're not thinking about it as a business. Now, there are authors out there that hate hearing this from me, but at the end of the day, what we are doing, we write a book, we love writing it, we have fun writing it, and it ticks all our boxes for being a writer and an author. Then we have a product. We have a product. Now we are a product business. We are a product marketer. And if we want it to be a business and to make us money, we have to think like that. So is this the banana romance or is it the mafia romance? Now, which one is going to be the most popular and sell more? Everybody here knows the answer to that. So you can do whatever you want, but you have to be realistic. You go into a grocery business and say you want to sell them, just trying to think of something really insane, talking bananas, they're probably going to go, well, actually, most of our customers want real bananas that they can eat. So we'll probably buy real bananas off you. We're not going to really buy the talking bananas off you. And these are stupid examples, but this is the best way for me just to explain, that again, highly contentious conversation that authors constantly have, and even some readers. The reality is commercial businesses succeed because they're giving customers what they want. If there's no customer base for your product, it's not going to sell that many. Whether it's a banana or a book or a paintbrush, that's not exclusive to the author world.
Yeah, and you'll probably, I was going to say roll over in your grave, but thankfully you're still alive. But I did something so many authors would probably crucify me for. But when I was in the self-publishing space, the books I wrote myself were the books I wanted to read, but I wanted to make money and I like the business side. I also like coming up with plots. So I hired a team of ghostwriters to do my write to market books. I see what was trending in the market. I write the plot. I say, I need a secret baby. I need a bear shifter. I need a BBW, big, beautiful woman. Can you put this together? I put some plot points and I hire writers and I market them, and those books did better. But I also like writing. So then I wrote German rock stars. They were not very popular, but that's what I liked. And so then I wrote myself. So I did a little both, but instead of writing to market, I just hired ghostwriters to write to market.
Yeah, look, it's no judgment on that because it's one strategy, right? It's one business strategy. And if you're, for whatever reason, you don't want to or can't write the book, it's certainly one way of doing it. For me, again, virtually, I think of everything as energy. And so for me, writing the story and putting the essence of who I am into it, no one can write my books. No one can write J.R. Ward's books and no one can write Jasmine's books. And I think understanding that as one business strategy is the way to go. But I think I have read big authors that have ghostwritten some of their books for whatever reason. Maybe they're sick or I don't know, whatever's. And I can tell. And then I think I could tell before I was an author. I just didn't have the words or didn't know quite what it was. But I was like, this book feels weird to me. Like maybe but I think it may have been ghostwriters. But I think, there's a time and place if I haven't done it. I actually have people say to me, oh, do you have AI write your books? I'm like, man, if I mean, AI write my books, I could publish 20 or, 50 a month. Like, and I'm inspired. So, but I don't use ghostwriters and I don't use AI. It's just purely me and my characters and the cat.
That is.
When I forget to feed her and myself.
That is awesome. All right, just 2 more questions for you. One, so there's a lot of conventional wisdom that it is really hard, maybe even impossible, to make meaningful income as an author. And a lot of authors struggle. I am not in the self-publishing space anymore, but I do like reading in the forums because it was a big part of my life. And a lot of authors are really struggling. Why do you think that is? Why do you think so many writers cannot make or are not making meaningful income from nowhere?
I think it's a mixture of 2 things. They're not thinking of it as a business and they don't have a plan. The authors that I've coached, and just for the audiences, so I'm not coaching at the moment, so this is not a plug in any way or form. Two things. They don't have a business strategy. I don't think of it as a business. They think they have a marketing plan, but it's do Facebook ads or do paid advertising. That is not a plan. That is a tactical action you're going to take. But why? And what does it connect to and all those sort of things? And then the second one is the writing. Now, this is a hard conversation, but I think, it's what I would be selling millions of books if my writing was better. And that is a hard thing to say about yourself or to somebody else. But the authors out there in general who are making a ton of money is because their stories are amazing, because they could be doing exactly the same things as me, but they're selling more books. And so the first book I wrote compared to the one I've just written in 2.5 or nearly 3 years gap, this newer one is miles better. I have worked on my craft and constantly being a better writer to sell more books. And I know it is because I get feedback from my readers constantly saying that, range of comments. So I think it's two things. Like, if you're doing the same thing and getting the same low reviews and low ratings on your books and not selling, you get to a point like after the 5th or the 6th or even the 10th or 12th book, have you got a business? Is it making you money? Because swear to God, at a certain point in my career before I went to left corporate, I did sit down and have a come to Jesus moment with myself and went, am I making money from this? Is this working? This is how much the books are costing, and this is how much I'm making, and this is how many they're selling through, and the pre-orders. Is this working? Is this profitable? Because if it wasn't, I'd have to go, well, this is a hobby. Because, what's going on in the background? Is your husband carrying you, or are you in debt because of it? Or, you stressing yourself out because it's not working. So then, okay, that's fine. The writing may not be good, or you don't have a business plan. Go and get a coach. Go and learn the marketing. Go and better your craft. Go and do, all of those things. It's not to say pack up your bags, go home and try science. It's just being really honest and going, okay, this is it. And it's, the interesting thing with every author that I've coached, they know. It's not like when I've kind of gone, okay, this is what the area I think that is the concern. They go, yeah, I know that. So they know they know they don't have the marketing and so on. So I think, that's it. But you absolutely can make money. Let's go back to the numbers again. 8 billion people on the planet. In America alone, it's like something like 50-something thousand romance readers. So 50-something billion romance readers just in America. And as an author online, we sell to the entire world. You don't have to have that big of the pie to be making, a 6-figure income from it. So it's absolutely possible, but you have to do the things. You have to have a good book. You have to have a good cover. You have to have it edited. You have to have a good blurb. And blurbs are tricky, like Jasmine and I were in this copywriting group together. Copywriting is something I've done all my career, but it's not my strength. I'm a storyteller. I am a fiction writer. But now I have 30-something books. I have got my blurbs to a much better level. But again, can I improve them to sell more books? Yes.
Actually, this is a perfect time for me to plug my course. I haven't marketed in a long time. I have a course on book blurb writing. It is available on Udemy called Bestselling Book Blurbs. So I reverse engineered a formula for bestselling book blurbs. It was top rated course in its category. So if you want to learn how to write book blurbs, Bestselling Book Blurbs by me, Jasmine Love, on Udemy. Anyway, continue.
There you go. They're really important. And a lot of authors do struggle because they don't understand the difference between writing a book and writing a blurb. They think, or even a synopsis, they think it's all the same. Writing is writing. No, one is sales copy, one is storytelling. So quite different. Yeah. But also, study the market. Go in and look at all the competitor books in that market, because a billionaire blurb is quite different from a paranormal blurb. Even mafia, even cowboy romances or historical, all of them blurbs are very different styles. First person, third person, all of those things. If you've got to that's the other thing. Authors are leaping in and they've written a book and they think that's all they needed to do. No, man, you've got to go and research the market and see what is going on, and then get in those readers group and listen to what the readers are saying. And don't talk to them, just listen. You might be able to ask a question or two, but listen. And even if you passionately disagree with them, remember the customer is always right.
Yeah, because I have to just briefly tell my story about my German rock star romance. I kept republishing it and editing it, and I hired a coach and rewrote some and republished it. But the thing is, I broke genre rules. I jumped into writing romance before I had read enough romance. I hadn't listened enough, and I did not have a happily ever after. I ended on something that was not a HEA. Which is happily ever after, and I just broke so many genre rules. Also, German rock stars weren't trending at the time. Step Brothers and Single Dads were, and so you do have to listen and listen to the market, listen to the readers. And I broke genre rules because I started writing before I had read in the genre, and that was my biggest mistake as an author for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I write happy ever afters in all my books, but you can write happy for now. So again, just those those rules coming in, like you can have a happy for now, but go and have a look at how authors have done that. Generally, they've written a trilogy or a duopoly, whatever they call them, where there's the happy ever after in the second or the third book, and it is I release monthly, as opposed to doing what they call rapid release, which is if 3 books are ready and then you might publish them all in one go or a week apart or whatever. And so you can do it like that if you've got that happy ever after in the third book, but readers know that they're all there, or they're going to be there in a pretty short period of time. And I would release them as quickly as possible, because a lot of even readers of mine, I've got readers in my group that are waiting for all the series to end, but it's 12 books and counting. My vampires, I just said with the Mafia, which was always going to be 4, I may write a 5th one. I haven't confirmed it yet. So I'm like, just start it, but they won't. If they are a reader that wants all the series, even though they've got happy rafters, some just absolutely want, and that's not just a handful. There's a big category. But again, decide what works for you. 8 billion people. There might be a whole bunch that won't read them, but there's a whole bunch that will. So,
wait, I want to push back on something you said, because I find it very inspiring. So I want to put it to the test. You say there's so many people in the world or in the country, but people are saying people aren't reading anymore. That most adults don't read. Is this true, or what do you say about that information?
Oh my God, go onto onto TikTok and Google that and search book talk. There are billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of hashtags or thingies on that hashtag. I mean, that's just insane. I mean, I don't even honestly, it's probably some media outlet writing an article just so that they can tick off their article for the week. These things aren't true. But I mean, no, I don't even know how to answer that. It's so untrue. It's not funny. I am selling hundreds of thousands of books every month. It's just, no, it's just not even a real thing. I mean,
so good news. People are reading them. People keep saying people aren't reading. People are reading. You just have to find them.
Oh, well, yeah. It's just such an, go onto Instagram, what they call Bookstagram, go onto to TikTok, onto the Book Talk hashtag, Facebook. I mean, for me, my whole world is surrounded, in these social media channels with billions, I think it was 52 or 56 billion dollars a year romance readers just in the US. I think that was last year's numbers. I mean, that's quite a lot of books.
Yeah.
And like I said, young people now, because of Book Talk's influence, are buying more print books than they ever did. So we had the wave of digital, and yes, that still exists, but there's a resurgence for these print books, and and then the covers with what they call the discreet covers without the man chest on them. So
yeah,
so there's kind of like a trend happening with that now. Yeah, I mean, Colleen Hoover last year in 2022 sold more books than the Bible.
Whoa.
People are reading. I just go, that's just an insane. Whoever wrote that article is just, look,
I've seen it in multiple places, but I'm glad to hear that is not true. Like, yeah, I'm very glad to hear.
Content creators and these media outlets are just people that are employed to do a job, and they have to create so many pieces of content. So some of the stuff they make up is a little bit fiction, like you and me.
Yeah.
In reality.
Good to hear. And last question for you. You kind of covered it, but if you could put it in a nutshell, if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps and become a 6-figure indie author, what advice would you give them?
Research the market to understand it, put together a plan, write, edit your book, all the things that I've been saying today, really. But don't go into it without researching readers and the market, and get a coach. There's lots of author coaches around. Don't spend a ton of money on that. You don't need to be buying $1,000 programs and stuff like that, but just start getting into the author groups, get into the reader groups, and just start researching and understanding it while you're writing it and perfecting your art. You think you're already there with your art, get an editor, cover designer, and your blurb, and then just publish. Don't wait. So if you've got a book that's ready to be sold, put it out. I hear this all the time. Well, I've got this book, and sell it, get it up there and get it. It's not going to sell if it's not published, right? So yeah, but I think, understanding the market is one of the biggest things that I see that's not happening.
Nice. Now, if people want more Juliette N. Banks, where can they find you?
The best place to find me is on www.juliettebanks.com. It's JULIETTE Banks. So I don't put the N in when I created my URL. So banks.com. All my books are up there, and then you can find all my social media channels there and everything. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, and I'll plug her Facebook group. Her Facebook group of readers is so much fun. Lots of hot guys and fun memes and book memes and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find that link on my website as well. So yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jasmine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was so much fun. And to my creators, keep creating.